Hey guys, in today's video I'm going to be talking about what is it like growing up as a Chinese Indonesian in Indonesia. I've been seeing a lot of these videos about what it's like to grow up as a Chinese American. It's probably like one of the Asian American tags, but since I'm not Asian American, I'm gonna be talking about my heritage. I'm a Chinese Indonesian and I was born and raised in Jakarta. I feel like it would be also interesting to touch base on and to let you know what it's like to live in Jakarta as a Chinese Indonesian and so forth. I have a set of questions here from the Asian American tags, but I'm gonna adjust it to my situations here. So first things first, what ethnicity are you? I am a Chinese Indonesian. I was born and raised in Jakarta, Indonesia. Which generation are you? I'm the third generation. My parents' grandparents moved here from China. I believe they're from Fujian. They don't really tell me that much of details about how they actually moved here. But so my great-grandparents moved here and they gave birth to my grandparents and then my mom. What is the first experience where you felt that demarcation of being a minority or different? Growing up, my parents sent me to schools that majority are Chinese Indonesian. I did not really feel like I was a minority. In 1998, there was also a racial tension between the Chinese Indonesian and the native Indonesians. I did not know growing up that Chinese Indonesians and native Indonesians typically don't get along, but it's been getting better ever since. But I did not have that background of information that was going on. So I remember going to church with my parents and my sisters, and I was seeing a lot of the native Indonesian, and I was asking if I was considered a minority, because I think I saw it somewhere on the article about minorities, and then they were saying like, no, they are, like, we are the minority because we're the Chinese Indonesians. And then my sister and my mom explained to me. Were you always proud of your heritage, or was there a time that you rejected it? I think growing up, I never wanted to be Chinese Indonesian. I wanted to just be native Indonesian, just because I felt like there's a huge segregation between the Chinese Indonesian and the natives growing up, and also went to an international school, so majority of the people were mostly Chinese Indonesians. I remember like really being like, oh, pride, Indonesia, Indonesia. And there's a lot of the time my sisters would be like so cringed out, and they would be like, yeah, I would change my name on MSN to Sindonesia just because I wanted to be like so proud of it. And I would always like wanted to like, you know, I would always like tweet about my love for the country and whatsoever. I did not want to be like Chinese, and my parents were forcing me to like go to school in China because they wanted me to be able to like speak Chinese, obviously one of the most important languages in the world now, but because they wanted me to like go back to my roots, and I did not like that part at all. But then after I lived in China for a year to study Mandarin, I was more proud of being a Chinese Indonesian. But that was also a conflicting moment because when I was in China, I did not feel Chinese enough, but when I'm in Indonesia, I'm not Indonesia enough. So I'm always in between. And there's also that moment of like identity crisis when I lived in the US, but that's for another story time. What are some stereotypes that you struggle with? So I think in Indonesia, we like most of the time the Chinese Indonesian actually don't speak Chinese anymore. My parents don't speak Chinese at all. Like my dad would think that he does, but my mom doesn't speak it, and I can't speak it just because I got the opportunity to like study abroad and learn Chinese. But the stereotypes would be like being able to negotiate. Since Jakarta is like segmented by north, east, west, and south and central, the stereotype is that if you're Chinese, you probably live in the north of Jakarta, which I don't. Or like assume that, and if you're Chinese but you live in the south, people would be like, oh, that's so cool, like, you know, like it's not a lot of people. But now, since it's a lot more blended now, it's more of a melting pot in Jakarta, it's been different. What else? And if you go to this if you go to Surabaya, which is like which is like where it's like eastern part of Java, they will call you Cece, which I hate so much. It means like older sister. Like everyone literally will call you Cece. So backstory maybe a little bit. So my mom's side of the family resides in Banyuwangi, which is in the eastern part, eastern part of Java Island. And my dad's side is from Bangka, which is like on the Sumatra Island. He's like from Bangka and his family is from Bangka, but they met in Surabaya. But my mom is like from Banyuwangi, so it's like a little bit complicated because usually like you don't really see Bangka people and Javanese people like get together, you know, and have kids. Can you speak your language? Yes, I can speak Chinese because I learned it, but in my family, like at home, we just speak Indonesian slash Bahasa. Question number 7 is, how has being Chinese Indonesian affected your relationship with your parents? So the thing is, the Chinese Indonesians here are very interesting because the parents, if they're traditional, they still think that they're Chinese, but they're not Indonesian, if you know what I'm saying. I remember my dad telling me that they're here because they're like nebeng. How do you say that? Like it's like when you're carpooling to a place that's far away. He told me that that's where his mind is at. For the longest time, I do feel like this is home for me, but it might not be for like some people. But my mom loves it here. My mom loves Indonesia so much. She will never leave. But I feel like because I'm a Chinese Indonesian and I'm aware of it, and I've lived abroad, and like we have that like generational gap where she doesn't understand why we millennials are like this. So I guess in that way it does affect a little bit of my relationship with my parents. How do you feel with your heritage now? Do you identify with it? Yes, being Chinese Indonesian, I feel like I get to really understand a lot of the things that I did not understand before, and I'm more grateful towards things I was taking granted for. Like, you know, like there's a lot of privilege that comes with being Chinese Indonesian in Indonesia, but there's also like a lot of times where it's not safe for me to be Chinese Indonesian. Like for example, in Jakarta, a lot of the times we have like those protests, like Muslim peace acts, and I remember seeing on the news that they were going like all up to the mayor's house in the north just because he's Chinese. So that was like a little bit scary, I guess, being a Chinese Indonesian. But then now, because the president's really enforcing that we're all the same. In Indonesia, we have a saying, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika means it's the national motto of Indonesia. This means unity in diversity. It has like the Garuda logo on it to like symbolize. It's more like saying that even though we're different, it's possible to recognize their difference in a glance. So I think the whole idea of Indonesia is already built on our like really great platform, but sometimes it got lost in translation because of like difference of views and religions and politics and stuff like that. What's your favorite thing about being Chinese Indonesian slash your heritage? So being Chinese Indonesian, I feel like I learned a lot from like being like, I wouldn't say oppressed because I did not really feel that myself, but in 1998 when there was a whole riot thing happening, my parents were like, I remember hearing stories about it because apparently a lot of people were like burning down the houses, and they were like sexually assaulting people on the streets. I would never want to ever like see that, but I remember hearing stories of people that were in that moment and they have to like scrounge for food, and they have to like go to the grocery stores, and people are like stealing everything. And my mom was telling me that she was like 8 to 9 months pregnant, about to like give labor to my little sister. She told me that I had to like hide in our old house with the windows closed and everything, and you know, and I was like close to 4 years old. I don't remember anything from that event. A lot of my friends who remember that, even my sister, I would say they were a little bit traumatized, just because you can't be a little kid and see all that, even if you're an adult. So if you're not aware of the 1998 riot, So I think there was an economical crisis, and from what I'm understanding is that the natives don't like, or like, I don't know how it started, but the natives did not like the fact that like the Chinese Indonesians exist. My friends who are Chinese Indonesians, they like moved away to Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia. Like if they have the means to, they would move. My family could not afford to like move abroad to another country, so they were just in Jakarta. But yeah, I actually don't remember like at all. And then I was talking to my massage lady who comes to my house every now and then, and she told me that when that was happening, she was helping her, you know, she was working as a maid or something, and the lady that she works for was Chinese Indonesian. So she remember going on the taxi or whatever, and they like dressed the Chinese Indonesian lady with like the duster, like the sleeping gown that a lot of the Indonesian natives use, and they like make her darker, you know, because the Chinese tend to be like paler. So I think hearing that was like really emotional for me, because I never knew about that. I actually learned about it in college when I was like researching a little bit about my heritage, and I did not know that this was happening. And I was just wondering a lot of the times, why did my parents like have a slight, you know, bias towards native Indonesians back then. I think now it's a lot better between the Muslims, like native Indonesians and the Chinese Indonesians. There I can see more, you know, like unity that's happening right now. So that's like amazing. But I think one thing about being Chinese Indonesian is, you know, I think a lot of the times we went through a lot. So I think like understanding that I'm still alive today and I'm still here, and I can like take that like stories and tell that to my future like kids, and hopefully like, you know, like just being grateful of where you are right now. So that I think that's like amazing. Like I feel like I would like want to talk about the 1998 right more for people that like went through it. It's definitely a sensitive topic to touch on. So one more thing, my favorite thing about being Chinese Indonesian is like that pride of, you know, having your ancestors move to another country for a better life. I was just back in Banyuwangi, where my mom's from. Actually she's not from Banyuwangi, she's like from Rogo Jampi, which is like even the smaller part of Banyuwangi. But anyways, I went there, and you know, this is like the house that I would go every year ever since I was a kid. So I have a huge like attachment to this house. So I went to this house and I was looking at like old pictures. I found like old pictures when I was hanging out with my cousins, and you know, pictures of my grandparents. They passed already. I never got the chance to meet my grandfather, but I met like obviously my grandma. I was really close with her. Like I was seeing pictures, I don't know if you can see it, but like you see this picture, it's like everything is in Chinese. So I'm not really sure like who is in this picture. Just kidding, that's my grandma. So even my grandma, she was born in Indonesia, but the class or like the school was in Chinese. Isn't that like super interesting to see though? And this was my grandfather. Like no, this was him. He was like a champion in badminton. And I get to see like other pictures about like, this was like my great grandma. She looks like the grandma from, looks like Coco, but like Chinese version. You know what I'm saying? And this was my this is my grandma when she was young, and that's like my uncle, my grandma's brother, so like my great uncle. So I'm seeing like a lot of these pictures that are like black and white. That's me. But yeah, that was my grandma. I was just showing you my grandma's photos and my camera died, but yeah, this is her. You see, like, it's so interesting that people back then like probably hired a real photographer and they didn't have cameras, so all the pictures are in black and white. So it's super interesting for me to see. My grandma was like a really baddie. My grandma again. I think that was super interesting, and I hope you learned something from this video. And if you liked it and you enjoyed it, please don't forget to comment down below on what parts of this video did you enjoy, and you know, what heritage are you? I would love to know your story too, so feel free to like make a video and, you know, comment down below and let me know so I can check it out. But yeah, if you like this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I'm new to this, but I'll be posting new videos every week. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!